Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today it is time for the first weekend of the June Joust qualifiers. So today I'm going to be giving you my predictions on what is going to happen starting today, of course, and then going into this weekend. I want to give you all a little bit of an update, just letting you know that there probably won't be a video on Monday. I will try to get my recap video out on Tuesday. I'm traveling this weekend, so I will probably need a day on Monday to catch up with everything that's happened and all the matches and stuff. So Tuesday probably is when you can expect this recap video to come out, but it will come out, I can promise you. So that out of the way, let's jump in real quick. Before we get started, let's take a look at where the standings currently are in the Overwatch League. I'm just going to throw them up on the screen. I have them done in my good old spreadsheet. It's a little bit easier to see, but you can see there the NA region on the left, Dallas Fuel sitting up at the top after their great performance in the May Melee tournament. Just 1 point, though, ahead of the Justice and the Outlaws, so still very tight competition over there. In the APAC region, also Shanghai Dragons, good performance from them as well. Their 2 points put them atop of the APAC region as well. So some very good things coming out of the standings going into the June Joust, but obviously all of these points and wins and stuff are only going to be going into the end of season playoffs. None of these points or anything like that will carry over into meaning anything for the June Joust. It all resets, so that's where things stand right now, and we'll keep an eye on those at the end of each of the stages. So as things are that way now, that is what you need to know going into the June Joust. The other thing to talk about is, of course, the hero pools for the June Joust. I haven't talked about it a ton yet in any of my videos, so just kind of want to talk about it a little bit, make sure you guys know exactly what the hero pool for the June Joust is going to be, because it is going to be active for the entirety of the tournament, including, of course, the actual playoff matches, the Hawaii matches, as I like to call them. So I'm going to throw the hero pools up really quickly so you can take a look at them. They're pretty interesting. I don't know exactly what to make of the way this is going to impact the meta as we know it. Obviously, no Tracer, no Sombra, really big change that could have a ton of major implications going forward. Where I think it gets really interesting, though, and the thing that I find the most intriguing is that McCree, who was so heavily played in the May Melee, is still eligible. So when you have a team like the Dallas Fuel who bring in Pine now, they have that hit scan player. That's not something that you have to really kind of look at as potentially being something that's positive for them, that despite McCree's really high play time, he's not getting played. No, he's going to be played. There's going to be a lot of McCree, most likely. With no Tracer, no Sombra. No Reinhardt, maybe won't be as much. I expect a lot of probably double bubble compositions, maybe some double shield, but we'll have to see what happens. There's been some stuff I've seen about Roadhog potentially getting played again, so we might be seeing Hog Zarya again, or Hog Sigma, or Hog Orisa, who knows what it might be there. No Reinhardt, so no rush compositions there. No Zenyatta, which is an interesting one, because I didn't think Zenyatta was getting that much playtime, but I guess I think he was on the lower end of that support percentage, but those are heroes that are out of the rotation, so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, and I'm curious to see how the meta will develop, but I guess only time will tell for now. So let's jump in now, and let's talk about the matches that we have this week. I'll try to get through them a little bit quicker than usual because of this intro being a little bit longer, but we'll see what happens. Let's start with Friday. 2 matches on Friday. I think these are 2 pretty one-sided matches on Friday, so I won't go too in-depth into them. The first one is the Toronto Defiant taking on the Paris Eternal. If you saw my power rankings, I have the Toronto Defiant at 11. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team, but this is a matchup they should win. The Eternal have not looked that great this season. They've had some good moments. They're going to have a new main support, which I think will definitely be something they're going to have to adjust to and learn to figure out. So I think the Defiant are certainly in a really good spot to take this series. They should win this one. It shouldn't be too much of a challenge. So I am going to go with the Toronto Defiant for this one. Moving on to the second series of the day, it'll be the London Spitfire taking on the Florida Mayhem. Once again, I don't think this is a very close series. The Florida Mayhem, of course, coming off a very good run in the May Melee, getting third place in the tournament, getting that one additional point. So they are a team that looks pretty good right now. I thought that they had a pretty good schedule last stage, or last month, that helped them really get to the point they are at now. That kind of really led them into going to Hawaii, but they still played pretty well when they were in Hawaii. Got a win over Chengdu. London looks pretty weak right now. I had them as the 19th best team in the Overwatch League. They have not provided me with much confidence, or they have not inspired much confidence in me, so I think this one should be a pretty one-sided series. I think these are both potential 3-0s. I definitely think Mayhem Spitfire's a 3-0. I'll say a 3-1, though, for the Defiant and the Eternal. Don't normally give scores, but I figured I would for those two. Moving on to Saturday, in the APAC region, we have some rematches to start off the APAC matches for this weekend. The Guangzhou Charge taking on the Hangzhou Spark. Last time these two teams played, it was a 3-0 victory for the Hangzhou Spark. I don't expect much to change. The Charge don't have a head coach, from what I can tell. I don't know if they've announced who their interim head coach is, if they even have an interim head coach, if it's just going to be Neko, the only remaining coach on the team, if he's going to be there. I don't know. I don't know who their coach is. I don't know if they've announced it yet. I haven't seen it if they have. And so it'll be really interesting to see how this team looks. But the Hangzhou Spark dominated them the last time they played. I don't expect that to change. I'm going with the Spark for this one. The second match for APAC for the weekend. This is a big pick game for me. It is the Shanghai Dragons taking on the Chengdu Hunters. Obviously, last time these two teams played was week 1. And the Chengdu Hunters won 3-0 over the Shanghai Dragons. So now the question is, will this series be different this time around? I think the answer is yes. I think the Shanghai Dragons should win it this time around. Shanghai struggled against Chengdu the first time they played last season. I think Shanghai was off to, I don't want to say a slow start in the 2020 season, because they lost to Chengdu and then they didn't lose a game again until I believe they lost in the Summer Showdown. That was the next time they'd lost a game. But they look a lot better. They look like they have gotten their coordination up significantly. Obviously, they have some more losses now at this point in the season than they did last season. You know, they've lost a game to the Hunters, 2 to the Dallas Fuel, but the Dragons still look really strong, and I still think that they should be favored in this series, despite the fact that they had challenges last time they played the Hunters. I think the Dragons have looked better since that match. I don't really think the Hunters have looked better. I think they've looked about the same, if not worse. I think the Hunters are a team that really kind of hit their stride very early. I don't know how they're going to do going forward. They favored a lot of Sombra. They favored a lot of Tracer. I really liked what we were seeing out of Leave on Tracer, and I think that they were running a pretty good Sombra. Wasn't a major pick of theirs, but the Tracer most definitely was. And if it's a hit scan heavy meta, we'll see what happens. You know, I think Jimmy had some pretty good performances so far, but I still feel really good about what we've seen out of Shanghai. No Reinhardt, a little bit interesting, but I still feel good about Fate. There's not really like a hole, I think, in much of his play, so I think this one should be a decent series, but I do think the Dragons should take this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to map 5. But I do think the Shanghai Dragons are favored in that one. Final APAC match for Saturday is the NYXL taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. I don't expect this one to be very close. As an NYXL fan, I hope that New York puts up a good fight. I hope they look much improved from where they were in the May Melee, but I just don't have a ton of confidence in that. They looked pretty weak, and the Fusion looked really, really strong. And I think that the Fusion don't really suffer that much from these hero changes, or these hero pool changes. We know Mono's Winston is really, really strong, so if it's a double bubble meta, that's not really going to change that much. Carpe and Rascal are so flexible. Carpe can still play hit scan, and that's really what you want more than anything else. And then Alarm's Ana is really good, and his BAP is really good, and his Zen is good too. Just because he can't play that, I don't think that means this team is going to struggle, so I think this should be a pretty easy one for the Fusion. 3-0 probably, but we'll see what happens when the series kicks off to end the APAC matches on Saturday. But as we move into North America, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Paris Eternal. This is one that I think should be pretty one-sided as well. I think the Justice have looked really good so far this season. I have them at 8 in my power rankings, but I think that will most definitely change. I think they're going to go up. I already kind of think I may have put them a little too low on the rankings, but we'll see what happens, of course, over time. But I really like the Justice. I think they're a strong team. They struggled a bit in the rush compositions. That was the thing that they lost to the Florida Mayhem playing. And so now with no Reinhardt, we get to see Mag pretty much get to play as much Winston as much as he wants. I think that really benefits the Justice. I think they'll be a much stronger team, being able to play a ton of Winston. At least I assume it's going to be Winston. It could be Orisa, but I'm going to hope it's Winston. And so for that reason, I do think the Justice should be favored to have a pretty good month in June. And I think that they are going to be too much for the Paris Eternal to handle. Next is the Houston Outlaws taking on the Atlanta Reign. This one I do not feel very confident about. If I'm the Atlanta Reign, I am horrified. If I'm an Atlanta Reign fan, I'm extremely horrified. Because the Atlanta Reign have looked good on pretty much one composition the entire season, and that has been Rush. There is no Reinhardt. They cannot play Rush anymore. I think this is going to be a very, very tough month for them. Houston Outlaws just recently added Dreamer to this team. What that tells me is that there's a possibility that Jonggu's Winston isn't the best, but to me that doesn't really matter in this series at least, because what I've seen so far from the Outlaws is still going to be better than I think what the Reign can do, even if, the Outlaws aren't able to run an incredible Orisa. I don't know if Dreamer's with the team yet. I don't know when he's going to be with the team, but I really think this one should be a pretty one-sided series. Reign have looked good on one composition, and so Outlaws have looked good on multiple. To me, it's pretty simple. The Outlaws should take this one. Final NA match for Saturday is the Toronto Defiant taking on the Boston Uprising. Boston look much improved. They look a lot better, I think. They definitely had a decent week to end the month, but I still think the Defiant are the better team. I think the Defiant have shown some high-level play at times, but they certainly have things they need to work on. I don't think this will be a roll. I could definitely see this one going the distance, 3-2, 3-1, a draw, potentially, stuff like that. But I think the Defiant should win this one. I think they've shown a little bit more. The Uprising, I think, will be a lot better this month, now that Gable-Shi is with the team. I think that the comms are going to obviously clean up, they're going to look better. I still think the Uprising need to get another DPS player. Losing soon, not very good for this team. I think they need to find a strong DPS player from somewhere, whether it be contenders or one of those Overwatch League veterans who is currently on the market. I'm going to keep saying Nene's name until eventually Nene gets signed. But somebody like that, of course, who can kind of provide you that secondary hit scan, because right now I think that's their biggest weakness. Obviously they have Color Hex and he can play, but when this roster seems to want to go a very Korean-heavy direction, it seems like something they should invest in. So I could say the same thing about the Defiant, and that's a problem for them as well, but right now I think that the Defiant have just shown more, they've looked stronger, and so for me, I give this one to the Defiant. Moving on to Sunday. First APAC match, Shanghai Dragons taking on the Hangzhou Spark. This was a great series when they played in the regular season back in May. I mean, it's still May, but in the May Melee qualifiers. And it was a very close series, a 3-2 win for the Shanghai Dragons. I believe that was Shai's big debut match, where he was pretty much dominating a lot of that series. And so I think this one has the potential to be another good series. I think the Spark should be a better team in June. I actually think there's a very good chance. They have a bit of a tough schedule. Obviously, playing Shanghai is not easy. But they're a team that I'm looking at to potentially break into that top 4 for June. And so this one could be good. I still think the Dragons will win it. Obviously, in a Winston battle, you got to feel really good about Gushue. Gushue Winston's been very good for a long time. I think that if it's a really, really, really strong Winston meta, to definitely look at the Spark as potentially the strongest team in this region. because I think that you could argue that Guxue is the best Winston currently in Asia, though Mono may have some strong words against that, and Gesture may also have some strong words against that. So it could be a good team, and I think this could definitely be a close series, but Shanghai's shown me a little bit more. Obviously, they've been tested. They were pushed by the Fuel. They lost to the Fuel, but they had a close series with them, so I have a lot of hope for this series. I think it'll be somewhat close, but I think the Dragons just have shown a little bit more, and they've put things together better, so I'm going with them to win this one. Second APAC match is one that might be pretty bad, and it is the NYXL taking on the Guangzhou Charge. Neither of these teams have inspired much confidence in me as of late. This one to me is kind of a coin toss. It's kind of a toss-up. I think the NYXL are just ever so slightly better. The difficulty that we see with the Charge is they were bad. They were really, really bad during the May Melee. New York was also pretty bad. But the thing that the Charge benefited from is they played the LA Valiant and the NYXL didn't. The NYXL won against the Hangzhou Spark, which is a pretty good win. It was before the coaching change, but a win is still a win. So they're very close in where they are. The Charge played some tough games. I believe they played Shanghai and Chengdu. They may have played the Fusion, but the NYXL played the Dynasty and the Hunters and the Dragons. They played all really good teams. So I think this one will be close. But right now, I think the NYXL have shown more. They had a win against a stronger opponent, and I think that the NYXL should take this one. The Charge just have not inspired any confidence in me. They're a team that really just has left no impact on me and no impression on me, and so I think it'll be close, but I'm going to give the edge to the NYXL. Final APAC match for the weekend, I can't speak English, is the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Chengdu Hunters. Obviously, these two teams played last month. 3-1 win for the Fusion, big win for them, kind of solidifying them as that number one seed in the APAC region going into the May Melee. Didn't go as well as they had hoped, obviously falling to the Shanghai Dragons, but this is a rematch that I think should still favor the Fusion. I don't know how the Hunters are going to do with these new hero pools. I don't feel as confident in them as I do the Fusion. I actually really like this hero pool for the Fusion. You get to put Mono and arguably his best hero. You get to keep Carpe and his really strong heroes. Rascal's so flexible, he can play anything. I don't really have a big concern. And I actually think that Hotba's play this season has improved to the point where they are a very scary team. Maybe they have a bit of a fall-off point here. And who knows when Poco and Funny Astro, EQO, and Shockwave will be with this team. We'll have to keep waiting and seeing. But I think they should win this one, and I don't think it should be that close. Maybe a 3-1, but I don't think it should be a super close series. Moving into NA, Atlanta Reign taking on the London Spitfire. As much as I don't think the Atlanta Reign should be considered a top-level team going into June, because they have struggled so much this season when not playing Rush, I do think that they are going to win this one. I think that it is a strong team on paper in a way that just the Spitfire are not. The Reign have looked way more put together than the Spitfire have, and so I have to just give this one to the Reign. They have a win. Their difference was not bad. They pushed the Shock. They pushed the Defiant. Arguably should have won that series, and so to me, it's close, but I think that I don't even want to say it's close. The Reign, I think, are just a better team, even if they're not going to be able to play a comfort comp. Next is the Washington Justice taking on the Boston Uprising. Obviously, two teams, once again, that already played. A lot of rematches this week already. But this was one that was surprisingly close back when they played earlier in the month. And I think that there is a lot to take away from that series. But I think the Justice should still be favored. I think when you have an Uprising team that is going to be integrating a new piece into this roster, it's a lot to expect them to immediately have high impact performances, immediately be a really good team. The Justice, I think, have more depth. I think they have a lot stronger players, and I think that they have just looked better as a whole so far this season. So I still favor them. They may not even play it as close as they did before. I think they're going to be better this stage just because of they've shaken off some of the nerves. They've gotten used to the stage, well, the online stage performances. And so to me, the Justice should still be the favorites for this series, even though it was a pretty close one they played last time. I think it'll be less close this time around. Final match of the weekend is my final big pick game. It is the Florida Mayhem taking on the Houston Outlaws. This one has the makings to be an incredible series. I think there's a lot of questions about how both of these teams will perform in the new hero pool. I think when you get to play Winston and you have OG and you're the Florida Mayhem, you feel pretty good because that's really where he has looked the most comfortable throughout his career. I think the Houston Outlaws, a lot of questions about how well they're going to do without Chengdu being able to play that Reinhardt. That was where they looked the best. And I think that was something that really, really played a big part in how they played in the Melee qualifiers, right? The Dallas Fuel wanted to play Winston. Houston Outlaws are not as strong as a team on Winston. You bring in Dreamer, you feel like maybe that's your better option. He's the better Winston player. He's going to be the player that they have on that Winston role if he's with the team already. And so I'm interested to see how this one goes. I think it's a bit of a risk picking the Outlaws. I am picking them. I think it's a bit of a risk because I think that there are a lot more questions about them, how they're going to go. Obviously, new main tank. We didn't see them make that Melee tournament, but the Florida Mayhem, I also think, had a pretty easy road to get there, having to only play Toronto and the Justice, which, Justice are good, but not as comfortable in the meta. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this will be really close. I think the DPS have been really good for the Mayhem so far this season, but obviously we've seen Happy have a ton of impact, and Dante's looked really good, and even without Tracer, I think there's a lot of really strong players on this team. I think if it's a Genji meta, I feel really good about the Outlaws because I think they have some strong Genji players. KSF's Genji, kind of underrated, so I'm really interested to see what happens with this series, but I am going to go with the Outlaws in a close one because I think that they have just shown me a little bit more so far this season. So those are all my picks. I'm going to throw them up on the screen real quick so you can take a look at them. I'm hoping to keep my streak of 2 straight weeks of regular season matches, perfect picks. Hoping to make that 3 weeks. Will it happen? Probably not. But I can hope that it happens and keep my incredible pick rate for the season going. So that is all from me for today. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But that's it. Thank you all once again. Comment down below what you think is going to happen this week. But I'm going to get out of here. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.